Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Saturday, September 7th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 116 is The Stanley Parable.
And he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
In the Stanley Parable, you play as a dull office worker named Stanley. Everyone in his office has mysteriously vanished, and there's a narrator telling you what to do. You can, of course, follow his instructions and go on your way. You head to the meeting room, then your boss's office, where you input a code on a pad, and a secret door opens to reveal a massive mind control facility, perhaps keeping you happily pushing pencils, buttons, whatever, at your office job, and you seemingly turn it all off and head off into the beautiful open world of freedom.
It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen.
But that all seems a bit too perfect, right? And let's face it, outrageously boring. Like, if that was the whole game, oh my god, it would suck. Well, what if you inject a little excitement into Stanley's life? What if you go against the grain? What if you don't do what the narrator says? Well, he'll adjust and pivot, continuously trying to get you back on track. But if you keep going more and more against him, eventually things go really off the rails. The actual gameplay loop of the Stanley Parable is seeing all of the different ways things can go wrong, each with a different and very unique ending. Between the Stanley Parable and the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, which is a re-release of the game with brand new endings, and actually none of the old ones. It's worth it to have both. There are dozens of endings, and some get pretty insane. Like this one, where the narrator gets so fed up with what you're doing, he decides to throw you into other games entirely, like Minecraft.
But is it enough? Tell me that, Stanley. Will it ever be enough?
I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the Stanley Parable because I don't want to spoil things for people wanting to play the game. But the way you interact with the narrator is remarkable, as Stanley does not actually ever talk, but you can communicate through your actions, creating opportunities for almost an ongoing dialogue between player and narrator, and Stanley as a character somehow becomes interesting. The game blew my mind and is one of the craziest things I've ever played. So why didn't it get to the top 100? Because really, this is absolutely like a top 10 idea. Well, mostly, while it is fun to try and find all of the endings, and the writing is pretty great, you're still doing like 80% of the same gameplay most of the time, and it gets repetitive. That being said, it's a really memorable experience that everyone should play, or at least watch videos of all of the endings. But that's not what this channel really is. For more of my content, you can join me tomorrow as I talk about my 115th favorite game, where I have found yet another way to punch trees. But again, not in the way you're probably thinking.